War Eagle, War Rapport family. Today is the day.
Woo.
It's A-Day, baby.
Yeah, we
It's
got
me,
football today.
C-Dub. C-Dub, I'm joined by Mike G, and we joined by the best family within the Auburn family. That's the War Rapport family. Guys, welcome to our pre-A-Day live. Mike, not a lot of people down there, bro.
I don't know what the weather's like. Maybe the weather's not great.
It was cool last night. It was cool last night in Alabama.
Hopefully Ike will jump on if he can. He is live from Jordan Hare right now. So he is in the house down there covering this live for us to get a live look at what Auburn football is going to look like this spring. So we got a quarter. I think all eyes are going to be on quarterbacks first and foremost.
Absolutely, for sure.
Offensive line is kind of decimated this spring, so taking no chances there. And people want to see the Robbie Ashford, TJ Finley show.
Absolutely. Before we get into the conversation about what we expect to see, we got a question here by Bingo asking, where can we see the game on TV?
Oh, great question. So you're going to be able to watch two places, ESPN Plus and SEC Network. Easiest is going to be SEC Network if you already have that subscription in your cable package. So you can get on ESPN.com in the top right, hit watch and log in with your television provider's credentials to get access to that. So that's the easiest way to watch this today.
Yes. All right. So yeah, it's a little because there's very few programs that are actually having their spring game televised. Clemson is one of them. They're on right now. But yes, you're going to have to do that to see Auburn today.
Yes,
Mike,
it is televised. It is on TV. Just every spring game is going to be on TV. That was the whole purpose of the SEC Network. Every school's spring game is televised every year. So
just some special instructions to see your team. Mike, tell me, what are you expecting to see offensively? We've been talking about this the past few lives. And I know for me, I want to see TJ Finley command the offense. How much of Finley do you expect to see in this spring game?
Quite a bit.
Okay.
Listen, last spring, we saw Bo Nix for 2 quarters in a drive or so. And we saw Grant Lloyd for 2 quarters, unfortunately. This spring, we have only contenders. Now, Zach Calzada won't be out there. I'm a little sad about that. I really wanted to see Zach Calzada live in action to see what kind of a rapport he's established with these receivers. But he's done it in drills. We're just not going to get to see it in any simulated live action. What it's going to come down to is, has TJ Finley worked out kinks in his game from last year? He's going through his first full spring with Auburn football. So, I want you to put this in perspective. His freshman year at LSU, COVID, no spring. Comes in, is a number 2 QB. He didn't get any work with that team really prior. So he comes into Auburn and he doesn't get a spring again. He spent spring at another school. Does his summer workouts here and, doesn't see any real time until the end of the season. So I expect to see a heavy dose of TJ Finley because you have to gather enough data to decide how close this race is going to be in the fall between him and Zach Calzada. Right. Is Zach Calzada going to have to show out to take this job from TJ Finley, or is he going to have to come in and do the bare minimum? Now, Robbie Ashford can't get lost in this discussion either.
Right.
Robbie has a good chance to show. He's going to get a lot of snaps today. He's going to have a great chance to show what he can do. I'm excited to see Robbie play today. I think it's going to be it's a good chance for him. This was his. I struggle saying it's a blessing that anybody got hurt, but it was fortuitous for him that the other guy, the other serious guy in this competition, is not going to be taking snaps in this game. Right. So. He's got to take advantage of that. As a college football player, you get so few chances to prove you can be the guy. This is a big one for Robbie Ashford. I think if he does what he did in last spring at Oregon, he may put on a show today. So I'm excited to see both these guys.
So you're expecting to see a good dose of Ashford as well in this spring game, maybe 2 quarters worth of him. Okay.
Yeah.
How much of Holden Garrett are you expecting to see?
Um, I'd be surprised if we see Holden before the second half. I would.
Fair.
If we do, that tells you that Bryan Harsin, he's got a shot to start this fall. I think if we see him before the second half, but I doubt we see him before the second half. I would not expect to see him the earliest second quarter of this game. I'm struggling to remember what the format was like last spring. We had some weird rules.
We didn't see Demetrius until like the game was almost over, and I think you had Trey Lindsay, you had a few walk-ons getting out there as the spring game was coming to a close. It was kind of a weird format. Like pretty much after halftime, you didn't really see a whole lot.
Right.
So if you're not seeing him before the half, that should be very telling in terms of where he's positioned in this QB race, in my opinion.
Now, outside of QB race, there's a lot happening on the defensive side of the ball too. We got three highly touted JUCOs who are coming in. Two at defensive back, and then Big Thanos down there on that defensive line. I'm gonna be watching to see if he can dominate our second string offensive line in this game and put some pressure on these quarterbacks early to see how they perform under pressure. So it's going to be interesting to see how we replace Smoke Monday, Roger McCreary, and Zacoby McClain. So my eyes are going to be on Dylan Brooks. I really want to see how this kid is going to do this spring. And, there's some other guys who have a shot. Joko Willis, I want to see a heavy dose of him. I think he's healthy. And a few other guys on that defense. So we got a lot to watch today.
Let's grab a quick super chat here. Parker Jackson says, looking at QBs, wide receivers, Jay Fair, got his eyes on him, and the young studs on defense. Appreciate all of y'all's hard work over at the War Rapport, War Eagle fellas.
Brother.
Appreciate that, man. Appreciate you watching.
Good point about Jay Fair. Good point about Jay Fair. Every quarterback has raved about Jay Fair and how well he has done this spring, how hard he has worked, the kind of progress he's making. Coaches and players alike. So not just quarterbacks. Luke Deal talked about Jay Fair. Robbie talked about it. TJ talked about him. I'm excited to see what this kid's going to do in year one. Now, wide receiver has been identified as a weak spot for us. Bryan Harsin talked about Malcolm Johnson making strides at wide receiver. He's working hard. Tavares Dawson. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see how these guys do. And the chemistry between these quarterbacks, has Robbie Ashford developed any chemistry with these quarterbacks in the short amount of time that he's been at Auburn?
With receivers, you mean?
Yeah, with receivers. I'm sorry. Yeah, so it'll be really interesting to see how he does.
Agreed. What is a good scrimmage in terms of play on the field? What does it look like? Are you expecting it to be even? Is that an ideal scenario? Are you expecting it to lean offense or lean defense? Like what realistically should we expect in terms of the play on the field?
I think defense. It should lean defense, and we should see glimmers on offense. I think you're happier if your defense wins your spring game, and on offense you need to show playmaking ability. So I want to see some deep down the field passes. It should be pretty even, but with defense having the edge is what I'm looking to see.
Right. I'm looking to see, particularly in our quarterbacks, hitting open receivers, making smart decisions with the ball. Doesn't mean you got to complete every pass you throw. Sometimes you throw it away. Sometimes I just want to see I want to see our guys command the offense and give us confidence that coming out of spring, we have at the very least two capable guys that Harsin can go with into the fall.
Yeah, for sure.
So those are things I'm looking at. Lawrence is asking, what's the over and under on Sean Jackson's carries today?
Hey, man, listen, I don't expect to see a ton of Tank in this game. Keep him healthy. He has nothing to prove.
He got the first drive, maybe second drive at most.
See, with Jarquez Hunter hurt, you definitely want to see what you have behind him, which is a steady dose of a guy who you just gave a scholarship. So Sean Jackson, I expect to see a lot of him. I don't know. I would say probably 10 plus carries today for Sean Jackson.
Easy. Yeah. I'd say about 10, I say about 10. I say 10 because 10 plus because you have to consider guys like Jordan Ingram as well.
Mm.
He's going to get some carries a day. Harsin has definitely mentioned him in spring, and it's almost similar to what we got at quarterback. How you talked about how Ashford is kind of fortuitous that Ashford is getting this opportunity, given that Calzada, a guy who's in the picture, can't get those reps because of injury. Well, that's
Right.
the same with these running backs, and so this is a great opportunity for us to see what Sean Jackson, what Jordan Ingram can do, because you got Austin coming in the summer. You have Hunter, you get Hunter back in the summer and fall. So give Harsin something to think about as those guys come back in. You have a pretty good rotation if you show out today.
Yeah, listen, Bryan Harsin talked about how, at the beginning of spring practice, you have to narrow down your field, especially at quarterback, really quickly, because you can't rotate four guys getting snaps. So the first thing we see is what? Demetrius Davis out. Now you're down to three guys, essentially, which was Calzada was getting snaps in drills. But
Sure.
other than that, in terms of who's going to earn time in this game, if you're Robbie Ashford, you're just thinking, all right, like TJ's been here, but after him, I've got to get the lion's share of the snaps in this game after TJ Finley. That was his mission. I'll be interested to see how quickly they bring him into the game, which should be second offensive series, I would assume, depending on how they're rotating. It'd be interesting to see how they're rotating it to get looks at these guys. So you have to gather data and collect as much information as possible on each guy to get something. This is your last chance to get something on film, Caesar, before you go into the summer. And
Agreed.
Zach Calzada factors into this race as well. I still think that he can take the job in fall practice. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
B Mays 2006 says, are y'all going live after the game too? We're going
Yeah.
live before the spring game. We're going live at halftime, and then we're going live afterwards.
Yeah. So if you have not been with us for game day during the fall, this is our tradition. Spring game is no different. It's a game. Damn it. So pregame, halftime, postgame, the War Rapport is with you, talking about all the happenings on and off the field.
What are you expecting to see, Mike G, in the trenches specifically? We know there's a lot of injured guys on the O-line. I'm expecting the defense. I'm curious to see how the O-line creates running lanes for our running backs, but I'm really expecting this defensive line to pick up where it left off with some of the guys that we currently have coming back. You got Colby Wooden. And I'm curious to see what guys like new additions like Jason Jones,
right?
What the transfer out of Oregon. How do we look up front in the trenches? What do you think?
Well, Zach here said that Thanos is out.
Yes,
so,
I'm not expecting him. I'm not expecting him.
That was news to me, so thank you for that, Zach. So we're not going to see Thanos. They like to play. No matter who's been the deep coordinator, they like to play deep on the defensive side of the ball and rotate a bunch of guys so you can be fresh in the fourth quarter. So I expect to just see a bunch of bodies out there. And, I want to see them. I want to see who we got behind the guys, pretty much.
Sure.
That's what I want to see.
Sure.
I want to see who we got behind the guys that are going to be the guys. I think Thanos is going to be in that starting lineup, but if that's a foregone conclusion, who's the guy behind those guys? So it's tough. It's tough to judge this. Judge us in the trenches with so many offensive linemen out. But we need depth. We need depth at the offensive line. And I've said this before: when we get an injury on offensive line, what we've seen in the past, if we've seen a shuffle with guys playing outside of their natural offensive line position, trying to get the best five linemen on the field, but maybe not the most effective in terms of natural ability at that position. So when you're taking your center and you're moving them to guard, and you tackle and you're moving them to guard, and you're doing all this stuff trying to find a mix of linemen, I don't think that's ideal. I'd like to see this spring that the natural backup at left tackle is stepping in at left tackle. Same center, same at every other position. So hopefully we get to see what that looks like this spring.
And I think I'm hoping that this O-line definitely takes a step forward this season as well. Year 2 under this staff with strength and development, also learning the system, understanding what Will Friend wants. I'm hoping that these guys, the light comes on and they actually take the next step. They did okay in pass pro, but I'm looking for to see them, especially seeing as though the identity is to be a downhill rushing attack. I want to see us take the next step in terms of how we run block. And
Right.
so I'm keeping an eye out on how we look today with that.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to be able to judge it fully because it's not going to be our starting guys out there. But
Sure.
Backup running backs with the backup offensive line, it will be interesting to see what we get in terms of run blocking with those units. So if we're a little, banged up on D line and we're severely banged up on O line, should even it out just a little bit, and hopefully we see some encouraging things there. Sean Jackson picking lanes, and with Jarquez Hunter being hurt, it's imperative that we have a guy behind him with some experience. Now, my worry with young guys coming in like Damari Alston is it's hard for them to see significant time on the field because they're not picking up blocking schemes. If you can block as a backup running back, you're going to get your quarterback killed. And so it's hard to see time as a young guy at running back. We saw that. We saw Jarquez Hunter have his struggles in that area last year. As good as he was at times running the ball and pass pro, he was not awesome. So Sean Jackson, watch that. It's just not about toting the rock. It's about how he picks up blitzes that hopefully they're sending to test and see where he's at in pass pro.
And the hope is that, this is year 2 for him. So hopefully he understands that better than someone coming in year 1. So definitely keep an eye out for that. Who do you think is getting the most receptions today? Or what do you think the passing game is going to look like? Who stands out for you? I know you have your guy you have your eye on, but how do you think how do you think these passes will be distributed in the spring game today?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So Landon King has been taking snaps at wide receiver. I think maybe the tight ends get a bulk of the receptions. After that, it's got to be Malcolm Johnson, right? Javarius Johnson came back, so I expect to see, heavy dose of him. So between Javarius and Malcolm, those are your most senior guys, I believe. And Shedrick Jackson, I'm sorry. Shedrick Jackson. You should see a good dose of him. So I hear Zach's picking my brain here. Tight ends definitely eat. I think tight ends eat today. And then if you're Malcolm, brother, get down the field and show us that we're going to have a deep threat this year. I want to see that we're going to have a deep threat. Hopefully Malcolm and Tavares Dawson can do that, and maybe even Omari Kelly. Is he in camp? He's not in camp. Okay,
he comes in summer.
So he's coming in summer. But Jay Fair, is he a deep threat? Who's going to be the guy who can take the top off your defense?
And I'm just curious to see who can play in space out of this receiving core. And so again, we've heard good things about Dawson. We've heard good things about Fair. So I'm curious to see what those guys can do if they get the ball in a way where they can make plays afterwards. I'm curious to see what kind of big play ability these kids have. So definitely something to look forward to. Justin Paul, we appreciate you, man, as usual. He says, Mike, I see you guest on Locked on Auburn and such. Do you guys guest on any recruiting podcast?
Justin, we actually cover recruiting a decent amount. So if you saw some of our recruiting shorts the last season, where we partner with auburnsports.com, who covers recruiting, to get a lot of the information. I am on Locked On every week. War Rapport Wednesdays over there with our guy Zach Blackerby. Check him out. If you don't watch Locked On Auburn, I highly suggest you check that out for your weekly dose. Wednesdays are my favorite days on Locked On, but I'm biased. But yeah, I just think recruiting is going to be a topic of discussion if Bryan Harsin makes it to year 3. And he had a lot to overcome. They're starting to build some recruiting momentum. And
they have a lot of guests today.
Yeah, listen, these spring games aren't meaningless, people. They are not meaningless. This is your chance to give kids a glimpse of what they could be in your system. So them seeing other young guys getting a shot to prove that they can go out there and be the guy is going to be really important. Spring is an extra opportunity for you to do that. So if I'm a quarterback recruit, I like seeing Robbie Ashford and Holden Garner on the field today. I like
Right.
seeing that regardless of whether they win the job or not, that these guys were given a fair chance to go out there and show what they could do with the football. And I think that's important. If you were a receiver last year and you got sent on the field with Grant Lloyd, you got robbed. I'm sorry, you got robbed.
Yeah.
And this year, this spring, I think the receivers are going to have a much better time with these quarterbacks. I'm excited to see a little bit of Holden Garner, man. They're talking. This could be the future. He may not be the
Right.
answer next year, but this kid could be the future in a Bryan Harsin offense.
Right.
So I'm excited to see where everybody's ceiling is at now. But most importantly, if you watch us, who has raised their floor? Who has said, you know what, coach, if you put me on the field, I'm never going to go below this. I'm always going to make the pass that's there. I'm always going to do the minimum required on every single play to give us a chance, even if that means throwing the ball away. So it's going to be interesting to see.
And by the way, too, we when we do have recruiting updates on our show, we typically bring a guest, typically Brian Matthews or someone from Auburn Sports, on our Wednesday night war room, and we allow them to kind of field questions from you guys. We haven't done that in a while. There hasn't been a lot of recruiting news, but when recruiting picks up, we tend to reach out to those guys. We leverage them to come on and give you the scoop, and we do it that way on our show. So be on the lookout for that down the road as well. Lawrence is saying that he feels good about Shanker. What do you think we'll see with Shanker today? With Shank, you think we'll see much of Shank?
Yeah, I was going to say he's one of those guys that's in that group. Now, we don't need to see a ton of him. We already know what he can do. Keep him healthy. Let him go out there for a series and get warmed up and do. But I don't need to see a ton of Shanker. He's a reliable tight end option. What I want to see is Luke Deal and
Frazier
Frazier get serious snaps today. Luke's a great guy. I mean, all those guys got a chance to get on the field, and I want to say everybody, but maybe did all our tight ends score a touchdown last year? I know Fromm caught one from Bo in the LSU game. I think Deal got one late.
I don't know if
season.
Frazier got one. I don't know if Frazier. I know Deal and Fromm and Shanker got one.
Right. Yeah. So maybe
and even King got one.
Yeah. Got one. Yeah. Like, I mean, I think all our tight ends scored touchdowns last year. So a lot of experience with that group. And for a quarterback that's trying to break himself in to this offense in year 2, tight ends might be an important bailout option. So
yeah. Bryson Bridges says it's not even worth watching without all SEC Heisman runner-up absolute unit Grant freaking Lloyd. Listen, I appreciate the joke, but I really appreciate it when Ike's here so we can see the look on his face. Man, you got to save these, Bryson, for when Ike is here, okay?
Facts.
But yeah, I'm curious to see like a lot of the newcomers on the defensive side of the ball. You mentioned Brooks. We've heard good things about Brooks. He's pretty much in the third rotation. I'm interested to see how Eku Leota looks. We know what he's like. Mm-hmm. We know what he can do, but he's put on some weight. So I'm curious to see how he plays on the few series that we see of him. But I'm curious to see about Brooks. I'm also curious.
Is the transfer from North Carolina going to be on the field today? Did he make it for the spring?
I think he did. He did. Eugene Asante. Yep. I'm expecting to see how he looks. So yeah, I'm those are some newcomers on the defense that I'm curious to see how is life without Zacoby, right? Mm-hmm. That was one of the guys that we desperately needed, especially in run defense on that defense. So how do we look now without Zacoby in the game? So definitely looking forward to that. We're about 5 minutes away from it getting started. Mm-hmm. So what are some last thoughts you have, Mike G, going into this?
This is your last chance for the staff to generate some excitement going into the fall about what this team could be. I think the person with the most to prove today is TJ Finley. TJ has the most to prove today. He's got to go out there, and I want to see him show out today. I've been supportive of the idea that we cannot know where his ceiling or floor is at just yet. I don't think we've seen enough of him. I know a lot of people don't feel that way. I don't care about the people who feel that way. I just think until we've seen the requisite amount of snaps here at Auburn, and I say this, I say it till I'm blue in the face. If you watched almost 3 years of Bo go out there and be average to below average, TJ Finley can get a couple games into the season to show us whether he can be the guy or not. I'll be interested to see this game will set the bar for how much leeway he's going to get going into next season. I am not in favor of mediocre all season. We got 2 cupcakes to start the season, and he's got to go out there and look good and competent and have touch on his football. He does. And the spring game is a good chance to show that you are headed the right direction. So I know it's not under the lights, but it is still a test in front of a crowd. Go out there, and you got to be able to do it in this environment. If he can't, that's not a good sign. It doesn't mean that it's over for him, but you've got a guy who started every game at Texas A&M breathing down your neck for the fall.
Right. And depending on how well Ashford plays,
he's gonna put pressure on you. So pressure bust pipes, baby. Like, you got to be able to take that pressure and keep the competition at bay. So I want to see if he can do that today. Listen, if he can't, he can't. But he's going to get the chance today, I think. He's definitely going to get the chance today.
What are you expecting to see out of the secondary?
That's a good question. Ask me again at halftime. I don't know. I don't know, man. There's a lot going on back there. So, a lot of guys have I'm agreeing with everything Zach says today, man. Ashford is very, very hungry. Yes, he is. And we interviewed him, and listen, this kid is here to play. He said, I'm a quarterback, damn it. Call me a quarterback. I'm not just a good athlete.
He's not an athlete. He's
I'm a quarterback. So go out there and show him today, Robbie, that you're a quarterback. I'm all about it. Let's see a competition today.
Yeah, I had a chance. Mike G had mentioned Oregon spring game and that Ashford. I think he was with the third team. He was a third team quarterback in the spring game.
Yeah, definitely. He was the third quarterback out.
I got a chance to watch him, and I was impressed with what I saw out of him. He looked sharp.
Yeah, let me tell you something. Third string. And so minimal reps, but he went out there and made the most of his reps and looked good in a short amount of time. Robbie had that locker room up there. They were not happy to see him go when Bo came in. So, it's just gonna be real interesting to see how everybody handles everything. But this is just the game, baby. You only get a few small chances. Some people are born with a golden spoon in their mouth, and they get every chance they can to mess up and then fix it. These quarterbacks, I don't think are going to have that opportunity because the pressure is going to be on Bryan Harsin in year 2 to make sure that he gets the right guy on the field. So they just have to perform when they get out there.
Agreed. Any other people we have not mentioned that you're looking forward to seeing, Mike? I think you've mentioned just about everybody. I went through. I know. Again, I'm curious to see what some of the newcomers look like. Someone mentioned Keontae Scott. Definitely curious to see how the cornerback safety competition looks. I'm curious to see what I want to see what Caleb Wooden looks like. We've been hearing good things about him in the spring, so curious to see how those guys, Caden Bridges, like I know we're not seeing guys like Smoke Monday, guys who have been regulars in that backfield for a while. So I'm very interested to see what the future looks like. This is going to be a very exciting spring game because we're going to really see some new faces and guys who have a legit opportunity to be the future at Auburn.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be exciting.
Well, listen, we're about to wrap up. It's 1:00, guys. I know the kickoff starts, almost in 10 minutes, just about 10 minutes or so, give or take. But we will be back here, guys. Soon as they go to halftime, we will be back here to give our initial thoughts, take questions with you guys. Definitely come back here. The War Rapport, we are out. We will definitely see you guys at halftime. See ya.